Using our 19mm socket, let's go ahead and remove our lug nuts. Let's remove our wheel. Set that aside. Now repeat for the other side. Onto the center of the front of the car, we have an engine splash shield here. We're going to go ahead and use our trim tool, remove some of the plastic buttons holding one side of this in place. And on this side over here, there's a 10mm bolt up here, and there's a 10mm bolt on the front. Let's go ahead and remove those. I'm going to go ahead and use a trim tool to remove this plastic button right here. You can use a pick to get inside. We want to pop out that center. Right up underneath here, there's another plastic button securing the back section. I want to go ahead and do the same in the back. Once that button's out, you can tuck this down and out of the way. Inside the driver's side wheel well, there's a plastic button right here. Let's go ahead and pop that out. Across the front, we're going to go ahead and remove all of our plastic push pins supporting the shield. Ours was damaged and we received it with some components missing already. Use a trim tool to go ahead and remove the center and pull the pin. Continue across the front. And there is one buried up underneath here. And there's one more. Now we're replacing our rear transmission mount. This is the unit right here. There would normally be a bolt on this side here and one on the other side of it. For some reason, our particular vehicle is missing both of these bolts securing the transmission mount to the transmission. We're going to go ahead and remove the two lower nuts securing the transmission mount to the subframe. Now once you have your vehicle supported up on jack stands, you can then use your jack, and we're just going to support the transmission. Let's go ahead and remove our bolts from our subframe area here to that mount. Using our 14mm deep socket and our impact gun, go ahead and remove these nuts. Now we're going to go ahead and remove our two 14mm nuts here on our forward transmission mount. This is going to allow us to go ahead and raise the tail end of the transmission up and pull the bushings out. Using a 17mm socket, we're going to go ahead and remove these two bolts. Actually, we're going to remove this one and loosen this one. I'm going to go ahead and repeat for the passenger side. Using a 14mm swivel socket, we're going to go ahead and reach in here to these two bolts. This is a body to subframe mount. We want to go ahead and just loosen these here, and then we're going to do the same for the passenger side. Now we removed our back bolts on the subframe. When we loosen this, the subframe will slowly lower down a little bit. So just be aware of that. I'm going to go ahead and loosen the bolts here on the passenger side. we do have our screw jack supporting the tail end of the subframe. You can see that that had moved down. Loosen, but don't remove these front subframe bolts. Using our 15mm gear wrench here, I'm going to use our ball head Allen. I'm just going to hold this here and break that nut loose. Now we used our ball head Allen because the angle, we couldn't get in here without hitting the bottom portion of our strut. Good, remove this nut. Let's go ahead and loosen our end link here. Just wiggle this out. Now we're going to use our screw jack here and a block of wood. You can use your jack. We're going to use the block of wood. It's going to be a little kinder to our transmission here, a little softer. And we're going to go ahead and crank this up and raise our transmission up and off of the mount. Now we're going to use a pry bar on the back section of our subframe, and we're going to work this down a little bit. Now the mount itself has two long studs that have to come through the subframe, so this is why we are prying the subframe down as we have that transmission lifted. I want to go ahead and feed our motor mount up and in. I'm going to go ahead and pry our subframe down. Let's go ahead and work our studs down into the subframe. Release the subframe. Now I'm going to go ahead and lower our transmission down. Now we're able to find some replacement 14mm bolts. Let's go ahead and get these threaded in. If you have your original bolts, just use those. And once we get this bolt started a few threads, we'll go ahead and get the two lower nuts installed, and then we'll tighten everything down. Now for clearance issues, I can't get my gear wrench in between here, so we're just going to turn the bolt into a certain point. It's going to allow a little bit of clearance to that bolt head, and then we'll switch over to the gear wrench and tighten this down. Now we're going to use our screw jack here to go ahead and raise up the back part of the subframe. We're going to watch our bolts on our body to subframe bracket line up here. We can go ahead and line up our bracket, put it on our back bolt. And go ahead and repeat for the other side. Go ahead and tighten down our front subframe bolts. Go ahead and tighten these bolts down. Let's go ahead and torque down our horizontal bolts here to 36 foot-pounds. Let's go ahead and torque down these two bolts to 36 foot-pounds. Let's go ahead and torque our body bolt to 33 foot-pounds. I'm going to go ahead and torque down our subframe bolts to 76 foot-pounds. Repeat for the other side. Go ahead and torque down these bolts here to 70 foot-pounds. Repeat for the other side. I'm going to go ahead and attach our Swivel end link. Install the nut. Now I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down. If you have the ability to do so, you want to go ahead and torque this nut down to 22 foot-pounds. I'm just going to make that nice and tight. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these bolts down. And if you have the ability to do so, you want to go ahead and torque these down to 33 foot-pounds. And once you tighten this down, you want to go ahead and torque this down to 33 foot-pounds. Go ahead and install our belly pan here. And I get one of our bolts started here. And we have our plastic push pins. Pop these up into place. Install our rearward bolt on the back here. And then once we get these in a few threads, we'll go ahead and tighten them down. I'm going to go ahead and install some of our plastic push pins here. Get our lug nuts all started by hand, and then we'll go ahead and snug these down. Go ahead and torque our wheels down to 80 foot-pounds.